The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this broadcast belong solely to the authors and guests and not necessarily the North Canton City School District staff and organizations discussed during the program.
Hey Hoover, it's Lyla Cosentio.
And Maggie White.
And welcome to the 4th episode of Hoover Highlights. Today we have someone that artists may know very well. Mr. Chris Triner, being the District Art Department Chair for Hoover High School and helping create Studio 525, he has done a lot for the arts. However, he does not stop at Hoover. He also is a professional artist whose work can be seen all throughout the United States and Europe. So join us today as we discuss his love for art and all he does for our school.
Thanks for having me.
So just start off by basically introducing yourself to everyone.
Okay. So I have been a teacher here at Hoover High School and in North Canton for 34 years. Before I taught at the high school, I taught at a beautiful place called North Canton Middle School. And I taught there for 7 years. And I also did a little bit of time teaching at Greentown Elementary back in the day when it was around. And I have a family, 2 kids who are both grown and both Hoover grads. So they went through a lot of the same programs. In fact, they went through this program that you're part of right now, and a daughter, and she's currently a junior at Ohio State. And my wife is a teacher in the district as well, so she teaches 4th grade math. So we always joke that it's a mixed marriage of math and art because two very different types.
Yes,
logic and art.
Yeah.
So you're very involved in Hoover, obviously, then.
I mean, I try to be. Yeah.
Yes.
We think it's really important, and we're very proud to be part of North Canton and proud to be Vikings.
So are we. Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
Good. That's helpful.
So how did you first get into art when you were younger and realize yes, I love this. This is my passion?
I guess I think a lot of artists would say that I always was drawing. So I always joke the students with my kids, it's here at school, I always say, well, there's no such thing as the internet. So you had to occupy yourself. So a lot of times a paper and pencil traveled, right? So I would just do a lot of time sketching and doodling. I didn't take any art in school. I mean, I took elementary art classes like everybody else, but I never took art in high school. So I never really had any formal art experience until I went to college. I remember my senior year in high school and my folks at the dinner table what are you going to do with yourself? And I'm like, well, I always like to draw. And my parents are like, but you never took an art class. You never had those experiences. I'm like, yeah, but I think my folks were really big about, well, you were going to have to make money. You were going to have to make a living and do something. So I know I looked up, I went to the library and I saw that you could become an art teacher. And I thought, well, that sounds cool, even though I had no experience in that. And then went off to college and majored in it and kind of fell in love with the whole experience after that. And that's where I got formal art classes and then sort of took off from there.
Oh, wow. So some of your first experience in art was really in college, getting the degree.
Yeah. And in fact, I had never been in a high school art room until the day I came to Hoover High School's art room when I got hired.
Oh, my gosh.
So I never, I was super scared. And I think high school kids would say I was kind of a poser because I sort of hid the fact that I had not had that experience. So yeah, it was a new and it was scary and intimidating for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. I don't know what I would do if I was in a room full of, if I was the teacher coming in the room full of high schoolers.
Well, luckily no one could see my LinkedIn page, so nobody knew that I was or wasn't doing that I had never taught in high school, so yeah.
That is such a dive to take, though. You kind of bet it all on art when you were in college. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and some would say it's probably stupid, right? But
well, no.
It worked out.
It worked out, exactly. Yeah. You went with what you were passionate.
Right, and I thought to myself, well, I already had college loans. So I was like, well, we got to make this work because I got college loans to pay and students today have. And so I just have to figure this out. So I just stuck with it.
When you were in college, did you ever doubt your decision? You're like, oh, shoot.
Oh, yeah, a couple times. And I would go home and, I would doubt myself somewhat. And then I'd go home and talk to my folks. And I doubt myself even more because I'm like, well, that was a big thing in my family was it was the 80s and where you had to make a living and you were going to support a family, whatever that looked like. So I was like, I don't know if I can do that. So, a bunch of times. I think, what is that, imposter syndrome, when you don't feel like you're good enough to be whatever you're doing? For sure. They didn't have a label for it then, but yeah, absolutely, I felt that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what exactly was the degree? Was it in teaching art, or was it art specifically and like a minor in teaching, or?
So most of the state of Ohio, you get a degree in art education. So, and it's unlike like math and science, it's usually specific to all of the grade levels. So mine is like kindergarten through 12th grade. So I could have taught any of those grade levels, like PE, generally music, visual art. Those are the biggies that like you can get a K to 12. Everybody else is pretty much like specific to like maybe 4th through 6th grade, or maybe just a small, what they call grade bands. So mine was a little bit bigger.
Oh, okay.
What has been your favorite age group to teach art to then?
I like them all. I think the thing that I have found after teaching all of them is that my humor and my whole disposition is probably more geared towards high schoolers, like my cheesy dad jokes and just the way that I sort of see life and approach the way that I teach. I felt like I'm probably more attuned to high schoolers. When I taught elementary kids, I loved it. I was always a big guy. I was always 6'1", and to little tiny first graders, I was always scared. I was going to step on one.
Crush them.
Yeah. So, I loved it, but I always felt like, okay, this is probably the place I should land. And then once I was here a year or two, I'm like, oh yeah, this was meant to be.
Aw. That's, it worked out. You played your cards right.
Knock on wood. So far, it's worked out okay. 34 years. So,
I just remember when we were in elementary school and every art class was just the big crayon bins where you're like digging through to find colors.
Yeah.
To find the
and
gold.
doing that.
I'll never forget the first year I taught first grade, and no one prepared me. Like, I had student taught in little kids, but I had never had a lot. And like the first week, I had a kid who licked a glue stick like a popsicle.
Oh my goodness.
And then I had a kid who would we would lay newspaper out on the desks and the tables, and all he would do is like cut out like all the inappropriate words out of the newspaper. And so, no one prepares you for that awkward stuff, because you're like, I would never lick a glue stick like a popsicle, and yet you'd look over there and there's a kid with like the purple gooey string from his tongue, and so it's funny how much on-the-job training you get with like those awkward situations.
And handling that.
Yeah, and then that's where I learned the most.
With the ornery kids, art class is definitely their time to shine.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
When you're younger.
Yeah, that's when you start to question for sure. Like, is this what I was meant to do? And how do you say this and not hurt a kid's feeling? Like, we're not licking the glue today. Like, let's put the glue away. Let's not do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching the different grades, do you think your teaching and art style change? Like, how do you, I don't really know how to say it, how do you make it similar, like your style of teaching still, but apply it to the different grades?
I think that, they always say that art is teaching is an art form in itself, the art of teaching. For me, it's always so personal. Like, I want to honor everybody's artwork. I want to honor that your skill may not be the skill that the person you're sitting next to is, but it doesn't mean that your work isn't as valuable. So I try to really make sure, no matter what grade I'm teaching, or even when I teach adults, I also teach at the college level. I always say, look, you may think that your work is not valuable. I'm here to tell you that it is, because it comes from you. It's your hand, and we want to honor that. That doesn't mean that there isn't room for growth. So when I come around and give you constructive criticism, it's not to say you're not doing a great job. I'm just saying here's more things to think about. So I guess it doesn't matter what grade level. I just try to be super honorable, and obviously the words are different in teaching first graders than high schoolers, and I can use a little more sarcasm and more dad jokes and with 10th graders than I can with first graders. First graders is a lot of clasping your hands and talking softly and
Blow,
yes. Let's stop for a minute, boys and girls. Learners, let's stop. High school kids, you can say, hey, knock it off. So it's the same thing. It's just all of the way it's worded and tone, I think, is important.
So obviously all students, you have to take an art credit over it, but people can do it. So do you teach Art 1 as well as the other ones?
I do. In the course of all the years I've been here, I've taught every level, but I do teach an Art 1 class, yeah.
What advice do you give to the students who have to take that class but don't, are not very good at it, but want
Sure.
to try? Yeah,
but have to take that fine art credit. So the first day or two, I talk a lot about that because I realized that statistically, probably over 70% of the students sitting there are not going to go on to take another art class. So I always say, look, you're learning something new. And one thing that I learned in all the years that I've been a teacher, everybody's brain's a sponge, and the younger you are, the more sponge-like you are to take stuff up. So even though you might not think you're really good at this, there's a lot of place for you to suck up this information, and it might be applicable. But I think all three of us, because there are three art teachers, we all try to make sure that you realize that art touches all kinds of different ways. It isn't just we're not going to sit and draw, we're not going to sit and paint. We talk about architecture, we talk about sculpture, we'll talk about art history. I even try to weave it in pop culture and music. And so somebody always feels like there's something for them to be successful with it. It's not just you're going to sit in front of a still life and draw. That's just not who we do or what we are.
That is such a good concept, because my brother's studying architecture in college, and he didn't take art or go further in high school because that's what he thought it was, and now he regrets it so much because all these kids did this art in high school and they were so much more ahead of him.
Yeah, I took the art class and it was definitely not what I was expecting. I was expecting a lot of, like you said, just, sitting there, draw this, paint that.
Sure.
It was so much, it was way more than that.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was expecting going into
Absolutely.
it.
And I think that's important because that's how you engage people to want to learn, because they're not going to learn when you just do the same thing. And I think that it's a disservice to our students if we don't show them. I mean, it's hard enough because you got to sit in a room with four walls and just sit there and learn. So it's hard to be motivated. So my job is to open the world. All three of us, that's why we do something with music and pop culture and architecture, or we work with metal. Those things are all important so that you realize it's not just kind of what we've all sort of defined, what we see on our Instagram stories or what's on TikTok, and I think TikTok world has made us believe that everything happens in less than 10 seconds. So, it also teaches you, look, there's a process, and it may take you a while, but it's worth the payoff.
I saw online that you had a little YouTube channel, and you have quite a following.
Do I?
Yes, you had. It said 1.39 thousand.
Molly's doing her homework. She's looking at doing her homework. That's impressive.
Well, and you had over 100,000 views on one video. I forget what it was, but it was insane. When did you start that?
Probably not long after YouTube started. So it's just such an easy way to teach people. And when COVID came along, obviously I did a lot more videos because it just made more sense and it was the only way to reach out to students. And I got tired of repeating myself. So if I record it. So I don't know why or how that happened. I guess just because I've been around a while and I've done YouTube.
Good stuff. The people like it.
Well, like and subscribe, folks. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Crush those likes.
Yes.
Crush those likes.
We'll drop the ad. We'll get you.
Yeah. Just crush those likes. Push that subscribe button below. Below. Yeah. Please, thank you.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm watching my phone. It's blowing up right now. No, I'm kidding.
Can you hear it?
Yeah. I hear the pinging. Yeah.
You're gonna get the plaque.
Yeah.
The YouTube plaques.
Oh, dream
the
of
gold
dreams.
plaque.
I love when I see those YouTube followers and they throw that up there. I hit 40K today. Yeah. Come on, that's good stuff.
I see it happening.
We can make it work.
I don't see that happening, but thanks.
You never know. So then, obviously, as we said, you've been working at Hoover for a lot. How has the program evolved since you first started working here?
Oh, gosh. Well, obviously, a lot of the faces have changed, right? So when I first started teaching, they always joked and called me the baby because I started here when I was 22 years old. So I started teaching, and that's not to downplay anybody that I taught with because I really respected and honored them, but they were obviously significantly older than I was. And so now I'm the old one, and it's really weird to kind of have that perspective where you were 21 at some place in the same exact place. You're still here, and now you're, not 21. The people have changed. I don't know that a lot has changed. I believe that students don't change a lot. It's just their needs change. People we are much more of a full service place at this school to like wrap our arms around you guys to make sure you're taken care of, so that if you have needs outside of just not learning, there's more things to support you, which I think is awesome. So we have like the care team that, raises money to help families who are less fortunate. We have programs like the one you guys are in here that we never had when we first started. So there's a lot of super supportive programs. I mean, we just started a fly fishing club.
Oh my gosh,
I know, I saw that.
We have a garden club.
I love it. It's so diverse.
Yes, and we would have never had that sort of stuff when I started back in the early 90s. So I just think it's cool that we have a lot more, so that you all feel like you're a part of something and the culture you're here is important.
So you also have Studio 525, correct? Did you help sort of create that?
So when I moved into the classroom I'm in now, I was in a different classroom. The classroom I had this sort of awkward space that wasn't really well used. And you know that old phrase that if you don't use it, you'll lose it? Someone will say that, someone else needs that space.
Yeah.
So I thought, what if we turned it into like a little art gallery? It'd be really cool, and the students could run it and manage it. So I wrote a grant for a little bit of money, and then the district was kind enough to pay for updated lighting. And so it just sort of all came together. And then once I got the grant, I had a group or an organization that was willing to donate some money. So it kind of all came together in about a year.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, and it's been going now almost 10 years. We've had the art gallery.
Oh my
Wow, I didn't know it was around that long.
Yeah, so we have about 3 or 4 shows a year. And we have a group of student curators that get chosen every year, and then they decide the shows and do all the advertising, much like what you guys do here. They run pretty much the whole thing with guidance from your teachers. So that's what we've been doing this whole time.
That's really cool.
I remember when we were coming to Hoover and like we were touring, we came from the small school, and I remember seeing like the studio, and I was like, oh, there is no way that this is like high school, because it's so nice and it looks so professional, not like it would be high
it doesn't
school at
feel
all.
like high school.
And I'm like, how do they do this? How did they draw this? This is insane.
We were the first little art gallery run by a school in all of Stark County, and probably one of the first in the state.
So why do you think Studio 525 is important? Like, why is this such an important thing for the students to have?
Because I think it's like what you guys are doing here. It's outreach beyond just the classroom. So like you guys could learn about broadcast and talk about it and practice things, but what you guys are doing here is it's actually being put out to the community. So your parents, the families, the whole North Canton community can see it. It's the same thing. We're open for the community members to come in. We had a show at the beginning of this year that was for actually professional artists from the Canton Artists League. So that's like a group of people who are like my age or older, and they actually had a show in our little gallery. And then they came and talked to the students about like why art is still important to them in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So it's like all those community outreach, and it just is really good practice. And of course, it's a chance to showcase what our students are doing. So it sort of hits at all levels, just like culinary arts does, like you guys do here in broadcast and journalism and VP, and I mean it's all business class. It's all the same thing. It's working real experiences, or as close to real as we can get.
Yeah.
And it just feels more authentic, and it's more exciting to learn that way, because as you guys know,
it
actually is better than. I mean, who wants to talk about broadcasting when you could
do it?
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And you learn way more this way.
Oh, definitely.
I agree.
And you have these experiences where you guys get to work together and find out, look, I want to work like with people like this in my real life. I don't want to just be a person that sits at a desk all day.
Yes,
So
definitely not.
I feel like it's the same thing for my students.
Yeah,
I was definitely, because I feel like when you do that, it gives you sort of drive and like passion when you
100%.
realize that, because you're like, wow, I love this.
Yeah.
That's
and,
what.
And you don't want to work in a vacuum like by yourself at a laptop all day.
No.
And I don't want to work at home all day. I want to be with people, and I want to be inspired. Like when you guys get together, I'm sure you're brainstorming ideas for projects, and the ideas are richer and better and deeper and more important than they are if you're just like by yourself surfing the internet.
1,000%.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the same thing with our students.
So you also do your own artwork, obviously. What has been your favorite like thing that you have created or worked on?
Oh gosh, I always joke I have art ADHD. Like I lose interest in one thing and then do the next thing. So I guess it's just whatever I'm working on at that moment. I love to paint like things in architecture and things in nature and sort of like things that look kind of architectural. So, I mean, I like portraits, I like all those things, but just anything that deals with like buildings and structures. Because as a kid, I thought I wanted to be an architect, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I realized that you had to do math when you did architecture, and I realized that once I took pre-calc that
That was a big turnoff.
Nope, I'm done.
Architecture.
no shame to anybody who teaches math or takes math or loves it. Mad respect. But I took pre-calc and survived and went, okay, that's where my level.
We're done.
That's the boat we're in right now. We're taking honors CCP pre-calc, and I'm like, math is not
Math
my.
is hard.
It is
Math
not.
is
I was not
hard.
chosen for the math life.
Right.
That is not where.
And you do feel like you're like, well, I don't want this to limit other things for me, but I just know that this thing is not my thing. Like I can't see
Is
myself.
not. I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I respect you're doing CCP.
My mom. She's like, the boys did this. You should. It's good for you.
It is. Your brain's a sponge. It'll soak up a lot, but
I think it's good to take the harder classes sometimes because then you have to like really apply yourself and like focus. And then when in other classes, but sometimes I'm like, this is the most foreign concept that I can't wrap my brain.
But think about it. When you go to college, you'll be a lot more fearless to take other things that you may have to unfortunately take because
That's
you were
true.
fearless about this. And sometimes just being less fearful is all that it'll ever teach you. And that would be cool too. Because I have taken things that I hated, but it made me more fearless than to have to take something that I was like, all right, I don't want to take that, but it has to. So being fearless is a good thing to end up becoming when you become a learner.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. That's
Preach.
good advice.
Preach. Speaking earlier, what you said about like how you like to do architecture, I also saw online that you did like the mural for the Canton Museum of Art. So did you get picked to do that? Did you have to like apply, or were they just like, yes?
No,
want you to do it?
there was a contest, and I sent a digital copy of my work in. It's actually the actual painting is really kind of small, and they picked mine. I didn't have a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna take a photo of it and turn it into basically like a giant vinyl sticker. So the mural that's on the side of the Canton Museum of Art is a reproduction of it, giant vinyl. It's fascinating how they do it. They basically like vacuum seal it to the brick so it looks like it's legitly painted on there. But apparently then it can be taken off and not damage like what's underneath.
That is so cool.
But it looks like a painting. So, I mean, because
That's
I
neat.
painted it, but my painting was just like 24 inches big. But that one is 20 feet by 20 feet. So
Wow.
it was cool. I mean, I got to go to this special unveiling. I got to pull a curtain down and it came down. So that was kind of fun, but yeah.
Fancy.
Yeah, bougie for sure.
That is definitely
That's
bougie.
definitely. What do you think about? Have you transitioned to any digital art, like in your classroom? Like you talked about COVID, how you would post videos online. How has the internet, kind of changed things from when you first started teaching art to how you teach things now?
So I feel like for me, because we have an Instagram account, I use it like a digital bulletin board. It's like the ultimate shout out because, we have bulletin boards in the classroom. And of course, we hang stuff not just to display, but to have conversations about. It spurs discussion between the students. When it comes to like Instagram, I try to use it as motivation. I try to use it as a connective piece to get to parents who might follow us. So yeah, I mean, we use a lot of, the kids use their cell phones a lot to take pictures, to record time-lapse videos of their work, so then they can see their own process. So just like, we're all, who hasn't gotten sucked into TikTok or go on Instagram Reels, and then you realize,
That happens.
not that anyone does that, but after a while you're like, 45 minutes I've spent on Instagram Reels. And I'll say, how like watching those time-lapse things, you can't help but watch because it shows like the process of how they did it.
And you want to see the ending.
Yeah, and I said that's the big ending. So I will encourage especially like AP and honors art students. I'll say, if you videotape this, you can go back and then like the path of your learning, so that if you want to like try that again.
Yeah.
And I said that's super reinforcing. I said, why would Instagram Reels and TikTok exist if it weren't for? Who wants to follow the day in the life of whoever, but you do, and you watch them, get everything from get dressed to go out to work. Like, why do we do that? Because we get sucked into the process of like, what do they do? So Same thing.
A great platform to promote. Like, even obviously in broadcast, that's like all we kind of do. But
Yeah,
we are
YouTube,
always on Instagram, like doing that. You see how much it helps people like see when, especially because that didn't make sense. Well, like when we're putting stuff out there, we see all the people that actually see it and they like it, and you wouldn't think that they would before.
It'll be weird to think about, like, in 10 years, if whatever you're doing, whatever your job, like, what will be the next platform? Because, like, TikTok is the way right now. But, like, in 10 years, will it still be TikTok? Will it still be Instagram? Yeah, it will be.
It used to be YouTube, now it's TikTok.
Used to be Vine.
Yeah,
that got taken
and
down.
you'll get to say, like, back in my day, and get to sound old. You'll get to use that phrase.
That's actually that's weird to think
You got to
about.
start practicing. Back in my day.
Back in my day.
Oh my God.
Yes.
When
By the time-
TikTok got taken down
got banned.
You'll
I
get
got
to talk
banned.
about that. Well, back in my day,
That is
TikTok
so
was
weird.
banned. Okay, Grandma.
before the good days before it was banned.
Yeah.
So if there were like a boy or a girl or whatever exactly in your spot when you were leaving high school, graduating, whatever, and they wanted to do exactly what you did, like follow your path of becoming an art teacher, being an artist, what would be your advice for how to succeed?
So I guess I would say, first of all, listen to everybody, but also listen to your heart. So listen to everybody as a voice and give their voice value, but ultimately know your own worth and trust in yourself. I think the hardest thing for me was to accept constructive criticism, both from art teachers, art professors, but also people like education professors to be like, look, no, that's not how you're going to work with that student. And then also when I became a teacher those first couple of years, there were a lot of people that were mentors and were really like good at teaching that I respected. I mean, think about it now, the people that you respect are probably the people you're most willing to value their opinion. So
Yeah,
I always say
definitely.
just be willing to listen, but then also listen in here, in your heart, as much as you are listening to other people, because ultimately your folks have set a good path and you know right from wrong. So just kind of listen to both and value them for what they are. Isn't that it? I think that's all. That's all
good
I have.
advice. That's good.
And I think that applies to everything, too.
Yeah.
I think it
that's-
does, not
yes.
just like art. It's, in life, you got to listen to your heart and do what you want, because
Right.
that's what's you're going to be motivated and accomplish big
Right.
things in.
And the more you're open to other people's opinions, at least you become more respected because you value people's opinions.
Definitely.
Instead of going, no, that's dumb, or I don't like that, or shut them down in whatever way. I feel like that has been one of the biggest ways that I've built relationships with students. Is I was always taught this was the ultimate goal, like when becoming a teacher, was that it's not the subject you teach, it's how you made the person feel in the time that you had together. So if somebody feels like our time is valuable, you will always respect, and therefore you're more likely to learn from them. If you don't feel they respect you, you're probably not going to be willing to listen to them to learn anything. So ultimately, it's not about the subject, it's about the relationship that the two of you have built. Otherwise, everything else is zero.
Yeah, for sure. Because
Yeah.
I know I pay way more attention and way
When they're passionate.
better in the class when
Yeah.
the teacher is like,
Right.
yeah.
Think about the people in your own friendships that you're the maddest at. Like you shut them down, right? If they give opinions, immediately it's all shut down. So
Wow, that is a
No.
that is a great point.
respect is
That
everything.
applies.
Yeah.
It really is. Especially when you realize it's not kind of just a paycheck. I feel like being a student, it's not just a paycheck for teachers, that they do really care.
Yeah.
And that this is,
And my vehicle
wanna
just
help.
happens to be art. It could be any subject, but if there's no mutual respect and you don't respect me and I don't respect you, ultimately
it's not
we have nothing. So yeah, that's what I always was taught.
Yeah, that sounds right to me at all. That
In my classroom, I always joke, it's not, what do I say? It's not art knowledge, it's life knowledge sometimes. So sometimes we're teaching life skills, not art skills. Stuff like that.
That's good.
Do you-
Because it can't, so many things can be applied to other things.
Right. And ultimately, that's how you learn. Like if you think about the subjects you love, chances are there was probably a person you really respected behind it that. Well, now you're
Everything
thinking.
is
I
connected.
literally, I know, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. It's all
Right.
coming together. All
Yeah,
the lines.
that was like my last year of senior year of college. The professor said that, and he's like, if you think of it like that, you will always have students' interests at heart correctly.
And it stuck with you for that long, so I'm assuming you respected him.
I did respect him a lot. I had mad respect for the way that he handled himself. So yeah,
It's a living proof.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's pretty much a wrap
Yes.
up.
So thank you so much, Mr. Triner, for joining us today. We appreciate everything you've done for our school. That is it for this episode of Hoover Highlights. Keep an eye out for new episodes on our YouTube channel and other social media platforms. Have a great day.